Hello and welcome everyone. To date, we've talked about circumstances, many unfortunate, in which religious leaders have condemned scientists or people who convey the truth about certain laws of the universe or observations, such as that the earth revolves around the sun, because of their insistence that the earth is the center of the universe. We've talked about the Catholic Church and leaders from other religions, such as Islam, and what clerics like Ibn Uthaymeen and Ibn Baz have said in their own words. And we've also talked about this aversion they have to modern theories or science. Their aversion is especially clear when it comes to their interpretation of Scripture. But what does it all mean? What's the point of even mentioning it? That's what we'll cover in this video. So please stay tuned. So why even mention all of this? It's not to call people out. There's actually just one fundamental important reason. It's because these people, these religious leaders, are acting as if their interpretation regarding the Scripture is the only valid interpretation, to the point where some of these leaders will call people disbelievers and issue religious rulings against them. That's a big problem, a big one, for one fundamental reason. They could be wrong. Isn't that true? I mean, how could there be so many different interpretations of Scripture, but they're all right? So somebody has to be wrong. But these fallible people are so insistent on their own interpretation, or the interpretation of the ones who taught them or trained them, or fallible people who came before them. And they may even belong to the same school of thought, yet they have different interpretations of what a verse means. And somehow that's acceptable? Perhaps if they all agreed, a person would say, okay, maybe there's validity to their claim. Maybe there's some evidence. But the problem is that here, even just in this example, we have shown that their interpretation of the Scripture was erroneous, or would have to be concluded that the Scripture was contradicting science if their interpretation were correct. But they would not budge, even though the laws of the universe, of the God they claimed to believe in, proved that they were wrong without any doubt. Instead of bending themselves, they try to bend scientific laws or discovery of these laws. And this can be a problem for a lot of people. Why is that? Because there's this thing that you will see, or may have already seen. It's this idea that the clerics, the leaders of religion, hold the key to the secrets of the universe or God. They are considered, in many instances, to be the closest thing to God or the mouthpiece for God. I'm talking here specifically about fallible people. And so anything they convey, whether it's correct or incorrect, people will automatically believe it because the scholars are better and more knowledgeable than they are, more knowledgeable in religious matters. But then, can you see how it extends to believing that they are more knowledgeable in everything? What they say goes. They hold the secret to the religious world, and then somehow it extends to other areas as well. Because they have the secret that none of the rest of us are privy to. And if you are a person who questions them, you incur the wrath of many. Let's take a few examples. And this is meant to offend no one. But these questions have been asked before. Let's start with the example of the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church states that God is three distinct entities or persons. One dispatches the others. Still, they are one. So the three persons are one God. So what happens when you question? People often get angry, sometimes very angry. You might get quite an elaborate explanation of how it is that we're going to make three entities one God. Or, on the other hand, you could be reprimanded for asking the question. Yet, the idea of the Trinity never even existed at the time of Jesus. And Christians themselves argued about the Trinity, and some refused to believe it and are considered heretics. So, who's right and who's wrong in this instance? And then, there are those religious leaders who hold all the other secrets that tell us more stories that are sometimes quite fantastic, such as the Muslim clerics who insist that Adam is 60 feet tall, which we'll discuss later. How could it have been that Adam was 60 feet tall? What evidence is there anywhere for that? If it were true, how did we get to the stature of today? And since so few religious leaders from the Muslim world accept evolution, how will they explain it? Or the other issue we've discussed is the fact that some still insist to this very day that the sun orbits the earth. And what all of this has culminated in, unfortunately, is that people have been killed or condemned for believing otherwise, issuing fatwas or rulings against people for disagreeing with an interpretation, harsh words and condemnation, all the result of fallible people and their misinterpretation of Scripture. Now, I have just asked questions that many people have asked before. Yet perhaps people will find themselves becoming angry upon hearing this line of questioning. I asked some of these questions when I was young, and unfortunately, they weren't received well. So, again, I just want to mention that we're not trying to mock anyone. We might be challenging some things that people have said, or repeating questions that others have also asked, because, again, we want to get to the truth. So, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please comment and let us know if you've experienced the same and what kind of questions you have asked or been asked. And remember, keep in mind, perhaps, maybe, just maybe, if they are so blatantly wrong about the scientific findings that are indisputable or contain a mountain of evidence, perhaps they're wrong about religion too. Don't be afraid to question these fallible people who are just like us and can make mistakes. Don't be afraid to think for yourself and look at the evidence for yourself in order to get to the truth. Sometimes it can be uncomfortable to question the status quo. So let's move out of our comfort zone so that we can get to the truth together. Until next time, take care.